What is up, denizens of the interwebs? It's Arza Chats here coming at you with another video, and this time we're talking about something I really don't want to, and that would be the new DEI officer over at the Pokémon Company. Now, this is another article coming from That Park Place by John F. Trent. The Pokémon Company hires Gianni Armitage as DEI and Social Responsibility Consultant. She relishes in promoting LGBTQ+ agenda to young kids, and we'll be getting that deeper in the article. As the headline says, she's the Pokémon Company's new DEI and Social Responsibility Consultant. And that was announced in an announcement that she made on LinkedIn after 9.5 years at ASOS. The time has come to move on to something new. It's been quite the journey at ASOS, many years spent building confidence in my abilities, stepping outside my comfort zone, and continuously challenging myself to be better. So feeling readier than ever to start this new chapter as DEI and Social Responsibility Consultant at the Pokémon Company International. She added, I'm looking forward to joining a wonderful team with new learnings, laughs, impact, and a crash course in all things Pokemon, as is stated in this post right here from her LinkedIn page. Now, the one big red flag here is, and a crash course in all things Pokemon. That would imply to me that she is not very knowledgeable of Pokemon, which is a pretty big problem if you're going to be working at the Pokemon Company. When it comes to the kind of person who should be working at the Pokemon Company, I generally believe that they should be someone who has, I don't know, a collection kind of like mine, maybe a bit smaller. And just so we're clear, this is only what's inside of my dorm. Here we have every single Nintendo Switch Pokemon game that has been released. I have them all except for Let's Go Eevee. And this is my Nintendo 2DS with the Pokemon theme. And you can't really see it because of how showing a screen works, but inside of this is currently Omega Ruby. I have played every single Pokemon generation with the exception of Pokemon Generation 2 and 3. And also right next to me are a bunch of cards. This one that I got for my birthday that passed recently. It's the birthday Pikachu from the 25th anniversary. I have this tin that I just got, filled to the brim with more cards. And like I said, that's only what I have here in my dorm. That's not including what's actually in my room in my house. I have so many more things, including a copy of Pokemon Pearl, a copy of Pokemon X and Black 2, a whole slew of Pokemon stuff. You shouldn't be in a high position at the Pokemon Company if you yourself do not care about Pokemon. And the most important one here, this little Pikachu that I got. Also a birthday gift. Just sitting here on my mic. He fits nicely. Sometimes he falls. Hopefully he won't during this video. But that's a really big red flag that she doesn't care about Pokemon. Why would you want to hire someone at the Pokemon Company at such a high and important role that's going to garner a lot of criticism that doesn't know Pokemon? And then of course, going deep into some of the comments she's made, it gets a whole lot worse. Armitage previously shared in a post on LinkedIn how one of her highlights at ASOS was seeing so many young kids at Pride. First of all, I don't know why you would post that on LinkedIn. Do people use LinkedIn as a social media site? Is that a thing adults do? That I don't know. But that quote comes from this. There's so much joy at Pride, first of all. No. And I think this is one of the best days of the year. I get to celebrate with my best friends and see all the amazing communities and organizations who are centering the LGBTQ+ community. This year was my first year participating in the March with ASOS, and thanks to Jordan and all the they-sosers, I don't even know what that means, efforts planning the day. It wasn't a letdown. One of my highlights was seeing so many young kids at Pride and seeing all those parents making a conscious effort to their children to know that being LGBTQ is something to be celebrated, embraced, and proud of, and that if they grow up to be part of the LGBTQ+ family, they'll be loved and encouraged to be themselves, she continued. Everyone should be and deserves to be accepted for who they are, and their gender identity or sexuality should never be the reason not to be accepted or loved. It's pretty interesting that she ended on that when earlier she said that it should be a reason to be accepted and loved. So it's an issue that if you aren't loved because of your sexuality, but it's perfectly fine to be loved because of your sexuality. I love the double standard. And as those who have watched more than one of my videos would know, I am not a heterosexual man. And I have actually been to Pride one time before. It was Pride Annapolis a few years ago. And Pride is a horrible event. No one should be going to Pride, especially not children. And anyone who wants children to be at Pride is either a sexual deviant or they are narcissists who insist on seeing themselves imprinted on other people because they can't help but spread their own narcissistic ideology. And I've always hated this idea that it's something to be proud of for who you are. According to most people, the born this way argument would mean that you shouldn't be proud of it because you shouldn't be proud of something that you didn't do. It's not an accomplishment to be LGBT. And if you're not doing something to make it happen, then you shouldn't be proud of it. And even if you are doing something to be actively LGBT or whatever, it's not a point of pride, and it should never be seen as such. In another LinkedIn post, she had commented there are so many of the students are centering DEI conversations in their final major projects, which demonstrate just how much of DEI is starting to solidify itself within the core of the industry. And the industry in question is, of course, the fashion industry, because ASOS is a fashion company, though I've never even heard of them. And as someone who's entering into this area of having to do final papers, it's not too surprising that DEI is at the core. There are two kinds of people: those who see it as an opportunity to abuse the system, and those of them who have been told the lie that their identity is the most important thing about them, and legitimately believe it and are feeding into a narcissistic cycle. Both of those types of people are going to be writing final papers on DEI, either because they know it's going to get them an A and is going to get them a lot of opportunities in the future, or because they legitimately believe the Kool-Aid. She also comments that she's working hard to deliver ASOS' first ever external DEI strategy, meaning spreading it outside of the company. Now, this announcement came 6 months after the Pokemon Company had established a job listing for Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, and we will be going through that in a little bit, but in all due time. The application states that they are looking to promote the Pokemon Company's international global culture of innovation, diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. One of those does not fit in, being innovation. Diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging are inherently antithetical to the idea of innovation. And that is simply a fact, because a culture that prioritizes the latter three is going to be one of toxic positivity, where you can't say no to ideas of people who have the proper qualifications of sexuality or race or whatever it is that they're using for their identity, because then you are a bigot. And by doing that, you are staunching any ability to actually manage any kind of creativity and innovation, because you're allowing all ideas, even and especially the bad ones, to go through. The listing continues. This role will partner with the DEI-SR team to build diversity, equity, inclusion, and social responsibility, and then goes on across our global team to engage and retain talent and foster relationships in local and global communities. And one thing I really like about this is it's wrong. It's tone deaf. I'm actively taking several communication classes because comm minor is really easy to get. And one thing that we talk about a lot is retainment. The goal of an employer is not to get rid of an employee quickly, because if you are constantly having employee turnover, you're constantly having to waste time training the new employee and searching for the new employee, when if you have them already on staff and keep them on staff, they do a lot better for your company, and overall it's for the betterment of the company. But one thing we also know is that Gen Z and diversity-focused groups tend to have a really quick turnover. They're going to be the first ones in the door, and they're going to be the first ones out of the door. The moment they get settled into the company and you say something they don't like, they leave. They quit on the spot, and they don't care anything about even giving a 2 weeks notice most of the time. If you really want to encourage the retaining of your employees, pushing this idea is really a bad idea. Instead, you should focus on, merit-based hiring practices, because those who prioritize merit and working hard are much more likely to stay because they have actual pride in their workmanship. And they say that the goal is to develop a positive, diverse, inclusive, innovative, and high-achieving environment, which, as I've already established, is an oxymoron. You cannot be a positive, diverse, and inclusive environment and also an innovative and a high-achieving one. Those two ideas are contradictory. You cannot have both, because one staunches the other. And that listing was followed by a company's $25 million pledge to various organizations to support children and social equity back in 2022. And these groups include the Pokémon Black Diaspora, Familia Pokemon, the Rainbow Gym, Women of Pokemon, and TCPCI Parents. Familia Pokemon is a Latino group. We are a group of Latinx Hispanic employees who are united by experiences, food, language, and so many aspects of our cultures. And they mentioned that their goal is to promote awareness and inclusion of the Latinx Hispanic community and culture. Now, I may not be Latino, but I do know quite a few of them, and one thing that they all believe is Latinx is a slur. No one likes it. Find me a single Latino who actually enjoys the use of Latinx, who is actually Latino and isn't just an American who's just slightly darker in skin, but they're about as Latino as I am in reality. You can't find very many of them because Latinx isn't accepted. All Latinx is social colonization. It is an attempt to colonize another language and another culture to make it affirm to white beliefs. And it's all rooted in this commie gobbledygook and this leftist fascism that is so popular in modern day that demands that all things be adapted to fit their mainframe. If you are not a part of their mainframe, you are the enemy, and therefore they have to take over everything, because any idea that counters their idea is going to immediately destroy their idea, because it shows the folly of their mentality. The Pokemon Black Diaspora group says that their goal is to create a space where they can collaborate, relax, and empower each other throughout their daily lives. Black excellence and black representation. Your job should not be to be relaxing at work. A group at work the goal should not be to be relaxing. Now, I'm not saying that your job needs to be stressful, but if you're relaxing, you're not working. And that's kind of antithetical to the goal of a job. And then, of course, I would just love to hear a white group say that exact last line. I just want to hear someone say it and just see what happens to them. Just once. Just want to hear it. I just want to see what happens. And this one's the most annoying one. They call themselves the Rainbow Gym. And I don't think these people know what the Rainbow Gym is, but that's often associated with the Celadon Gym and Erica, one of the main gym leaders, because she gives you the rainbow badge. Though I'm sure that was just a coincidence that it happened up like that. And they mentioned that their goal is creating a safe space for queer folks and allies and understanding of the intersectionalities of the larger community. And of course, there it is, intersectionality. I'm surprised they haven't mentioned bridge yet. But that's probably just because bridge hasn't made it over to Japan yet. But focusing on the intersectionality is one of the worst ideas ever, because intersectionality is one of the dumbest ideas. It is an idea, for those who are not aware, intersectionality basically claims that all of your identities intersect and they impact how everything in your life will unfold. If you are a black gay man, that is going to be the center of your life. And if you're a white gay man, you're going to have a completely different experience than a white straight man, and all those different things. All of your identities intersect to change your life, and that is the only way that your life will be impacted. Intersectionality ignores meritocracy, it ignores hard work, it ignores personality, it ignores drive. All it believes in is that your identity is at the core of everything, and it is the defining factor of success or failure. And of course, I'm still looking for a place where it isn't safe to be queer or an ally of queer people. Because allies, let's be honest, get the least brunt. They get even less than queer people do. And you know what? Most gay people do not like the label of queer. And I think that's really interesting that they're using two labels that the majority of people dislike being associated with. It just shows how tone deaf this leftist fascist ideology is because it completely ignores what people actually want in favor of what looks good. Just as Elon Musk once said, it is people who are concerned about looking good while doing evil. And this one's even funnier. Women of Pokemon reads, Women of Pokemon, WXP, is committed to the empowering of all the Pokémon Company International employees who identify as women, non-binary people, and all people of marginalized genders. Which means that there is only one gender identity that is not represented in this group. And if you are ignoring all but one identity, I believe the term you're looking for is discrimination. It is discrimination. They, of course, only call it women because, let's be honest, the majority of people who identify as a marginalized gender are just women. It's not at all shocking whatsoever that this is, of course, the way that this group works, because this is how everything works. And even going back to the Ubisoft's women in gaming thing that was open for anyone who isn't male. Now, this is the one group that I actually don't have an issue with, and that's the Pokémon Company International Parents. The TPCI Parents ERG, we are building off the love for children and family exemplified in the Pokémon brand in order to empower parents to thrive both at work and at home. Parenthood is an ever-evolving journey that intersects all aspects of life and comes in many shapes. This group recognizes that by improving the support for parents within TPCI, we will attract and retain talent and improve employee engagement among those who identify as parents. This will be done through advancing company-focused initiatives such as advancing resources and benefits, providing speakers and coaching. We will also promote networking initiatives and a community of support. Now, I have a lot of issue with the verbiage in there, but the idea of actually supporting parents is a really good one. One thing that causes a lot of turnover is dealing with maternity leave or paternity leave, and having a culture that actually supports that, assuming they actually support paternity leave, would be really good. And you know, Pokemon Company would be the perfect kind of place to have an inbuilt daycare, because you have so many things that are designed for the entertainment of children, because at its core, Pokemon is a child-focused brand. But looking to the actual verbiage of this group, it gets really concerning. First of all, the statement that it intersects all aspects of life, and while that is generally true, the fact that they use the word intersect is just another point of the DEI-infested leftist verbiage. That is the use of the intersectionality, because while yes, being a parent does change how everything in your life functions, the use of the word intersect is very intentional, and it is done explicitly to push this DEI focus initiative. And then also the verbiage here, among those who identify as parents. You don't get to identify as a parent. I assume that they're using the term identify as a parent to include guardians, possibly, but then why not just have as a parent or guardian? Because those are the two. If you're in care of a child, you are a parent or you are a guardian. That's the rule. What else is there that would require for you to identify? Are they then expanding this to pet parents? Is that what they're using this for? Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if they believed in pet parents. So I'm going to join the group, and I'm going to bring my baby pet Rock with me. We're going to sit there in the parent training position, because I guess that's what they mean by identify. Because there is no such thing as identifying as a parent. You are a parent or a guardian, or you're not. As for the organizations that the Pokemon Company was going to give to, it includes a number of radical leftist organizations, including the Trevor Project, 100 Black Men of London, Black Girls Code Canada, Interfaith America, Young Women Empowerment, the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, Stop AAPI Hate, and more. And why is the Pokemon Company giving money to these groups? Honestly, it makes no sense unless they're really trying for an ESG score that is deemed as being profitable. But the problem is Pokemon Company doesn't need any ESG help because they are already a very wealthy company, being one of the biggest companies in Japan. So all of this is really worrying, especially with the state of Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, which was also a really concerning game given how bad of a state the game was in when it released. And that's going to bring me over to that actual job application, which thankfully John F. Trent did attach to the article. It mentions that the job responsibilities will be 50% of the time will be direct leadership, guidance, and development of the existing team, and 50% will be strategy and implementation. So that's just spreading more of the bridge DEI initiatives. And they also mentioned that there's a strategy for both internal employees, external fans, and the communities we serve. And that's what gets really concerning. The focus on external fans means modifying the trading cards. It means putting these things into the games. It means putting it into Pokemon Go with the hideous avatars. It means making all the Pokemon Scarlet and Violet avatars look horribly androgynous and taking out any option for really genderized clothing options. It's all these small things that ultimately spread this to customers who do not want to engage with it. Acquisition and employer branding initiatives, which I assume is implemented in the actual hiring processes and deciding who to work with on the company. And honestly, I wouldn't want these kind of people deciding who to work with because that's just setting it up for a discriminatory hiring practice, which of course with this kind of initiative, we already know that they already are taking part in discriminatory hiring practices, but having it so blatantly out there is incredibly concerning. It also mentions that they will be responsible for corporate giving, sponsorships, and matching gifts and volunteerism. Basically deciding how the company is going to be investing their money and who they're going to be propping up, which of course will be focused more on discrimination than actual merit. And then for the actual requirements, you require 12 plus years of relevant professional experience plus 5 years of people management experience or demonstrated equivalent level of expertise. Which, one thing that's really important to note is if you remember with the woman who got the job, her announcement makes it very clear that she only had 9.5 years of experience. It also says that you need a bachelor's degree, and that's kind of a waste of a bachelor's degree, as well as excellent technical project management and communication skills, excellent presentation and public speaking skill, and a proven track record of success in cultivating relationships through collaboration, including working with senior leadership, and proficiency in Microsoft Office Suite. And the one thing that concerns me about that is, that's merit. That's all merit. That's not any of the identity-based stuff. That's merit. You need merit to do this job, but the job is also highly antithetical to merit. Also, what does a proven track record of success look like for a DEI job? Does it just mean saying, hey, look, we increased our percentage of women? Is it we gave away this much money? Is it we lost this much money because people started boycotting us? Is it an increase in ESG? I would love to know the metric of success. And this is another concerning point, that this thing specifically mentions that you need a passion for Pokemon. You need a passion and understanding of the Pokemon brand, impact it has on our people, culture, business, fans, and communities, and applying that knowledge and passion to everything you do. And she specifically said that she doesn't know Pokemon. She's looking forward to a crash course on it, which means she doesn't even want the full history. She wants a quick introduction. She wants to just get the cursory information and move on. And the problem with that is, I know a lot of Pokemon fans, being one myself, who are very deeply invested in this DEI nonsense, who are very invested in this wokeism. So the fact that they didn't even bother to find someone who matched that requirement alongside of the DEI consultant aspect is really concerning to me. How much do they actually care about this position? Is it that this position is just a figurehead, or is it that they're going to let this position dominate? Because the less you care about Pokemon, the more you're willing to change it. And it also mentions that they focus on delighting customers, listens and understands the interests and needs of our customers and stakeholders, making them feel heard and important, and embracing these learning to continue delivering a unique Pokemon experience. Well, you want to listen to me? You want to listen to the fans? I'm a fan. I qualify as a fan. I have the qualifications. Quit. Get rid of this stupid initiative and get rid of this goddamn obsession with DEI, because all you're doing is you're poisoning one of the greatest brands in history. You are poisoning a game company that has a long legacy, but legacies crumble fast. And with the failure of Scarlet and Violet, I'm sure that it's going to come real quick. And then the last part that's of any concern is the demographic information, and specifically what they ask you for. Of course, I find it really interesting in the hypocrisy of it all. Under the race and ethnicity section, they list it as American Indian or Alaska Native, not Native American, which I usually see it as being listed as, and they don't even list the option for Latino, Latinx, or anything else other than Hispanic. They don't include the other option, and I'm willing to bet that's just because the corporation didn't want to get caught up in that verbiage. And they both ask you your gender, And they ask you if you're transgender. They also put woman above man, which is something that I've noticed something starting to do, which is quite fun. And the interesting here is they put non-binary under gender and not under transgender. And then, even more concerning, they ask you your sexual orientation. It says select one, but this is a multi-select box, it looks like. And a lot of people generally have a multi-select, so I find it kind of interesting that they only have one, and how limited the actual selection is. But the fact that they have that included at all is incredibly concerning to me. Why would they have that as an actual thing? And they say it is voluntary, and that it will not impact hiring decisions. And if it doesn't impact hiring decisions, why ask? Well, the reason they ask is because the company gets benefit if you match these demographics. So, of course, if they get benefits, they're going to want to pick it. And for a group like DEI Focus, they're going to choose based off of these demographics. They say they're not hiring off of them, and the problem is you'd have to prove that they are, but they 100% are. Do not get it twisted. That's exactly why they're there. And that is why, every chance I get, I actually take full advantage of it. On my YouTube demographics, I'm pretty sure I put it as not sure on answering whether or not I was transgender, just as a hope that I get marked as a preferred YouTuber, because I know that they're going to be using it to prioritize people that they want, because if I have the correct demographics, which I have some of them, but clearly not all of them, they're going to prioritize me a lot more than they are non-marginalized groups. So yeah, all of this is just really concerning in everything, because especially with how Pokemon Scarlet and Violet looked, how Pokemon Arceus looked, although Arceus was incredibly fun to play, the options were still incredibly limited, though it was a lot better than some of the other games. But Scarlet and Violet looked generic, it looked androgynous, the game was completely unpolished, and I was a Scarlet and Violet defender, and I still am, because I actually did enjoy Scarlet and Violet, but I definitely saw a lot of the wokeism sneaking in there, such as the fact that you can't customize your character, because I'm sure they didn't want to deal with the outrage of whether or not they allowed you to have all clothing options or they limited clothing options, and therefore they just took clothing options away from the player entirely. And you can even see it in the very foundation of the game with the character